Aloha and welcome to this code walkthrough of the meteor-example-cloudinary application. Hopefully you've gone through this um, uh, documentation page, the README, and pretty much understand how things work in terms of setting up your Cloudinary account, defining an incoming transformation, um, and setting up your Meteor application. So if you've gone through all that, then hopefully you'll be ready to actually, or be able to actually run the application. Here's what it looks like at the conclusion of the documentation that I just generated for the home page. And I'll just show you kind of interactively. Let's say we wanted to define a new image for somebody named Bob Weir, and I happen to have an image of him on my desktop right there, so I can click open, and then there he is, and I can, kind of like, change the cropping, and I can do upload. That's now uploaded that image to Cloudinary, and it's also created some hidden fields based on the callback from that JavaScript widget, the Cloudinary widget, that after it runs and uploads, you can pass in a callback which will provide back to you the URLs to the image that has been uploaded and a URL of a thumbnail and so forth. And those are now in hidden fields in this form, so that when I click submit, my application will actually now know about these URLs and where to get the photo. So if I click submit, what happens is now I have processed this form, which now has data about the uploaded images. That data is then added to a Meteor collection, and this table right here is basically just spitting out all the documents in that collection. And since Meteor's reactive, as soon as the submit handler updates the actual collection, then this table will be redisplayed with the new images. Okay, so how does this application actually work? I'll just kind of go through the pieces that are specific to Cloudinary. You can look at my other videos to see how this application is structured. The first thing is that in the head of the application, I've added this script to load the Cloudinary widget. Okay, and there's other ways that you can get this code defined. I'm doing it globally because this application is just one page, but you may want to do things differently. The second thing is that I define a collection called image data, and that collection has documents, each document of which has 3 fields: a name field, a URL field, and a thumbnail field. The name is taken from the form, and then this URL will be the URL to the full image. And then Cloudinary also provides a thumbnail version, a URL to a thumbnail version, and we'll store that as well. And those are if we go back to our table, that's the thumbnail from the document, the name field of the document, and then this is a link to the full image. I can click it, you can see that. So this is just the three values of this, the documents in this collection. Okay, and then startup, there's nothing that interesting in startup. We just have a router which doesn't really do much. We have publications and subscriptions, so we're publishing the image data here, and we'll subscribe to it in the page. If we go to the page, what we'll see here is the template for our page. We're using Semantic UI, and so we're going to create a form, and the form has two fields in it. It has this name field, and that's based upon a text form control, which is located right here in the UI components form controls. If you look at the Meteor example form application, you can learn more about why this is structured this way, but basically it's convenient with Semantic UI to create little templates for each form control with their own, potentially with their own JavaScript associated event or handlers. Text form control doesn't need that, but we do define a new form control called the cloudinary upload widget that I'll go through. That's the second subtemplate within this form. And then we have a button just to handle submit. Below that you'll see we check to make sure that we have all the data from our subscription, and then if we do, we're going to create this table using semantic UI styling that provides the thumbnail, the name, and the image. You can just see the thumbnail is IMG, where we iterate through all of the documents in the images collection. So if we look at the helper images, you can see we're just returning all of the images in the collection. So we iterate through for each document in that images collection. We're going to get the thumbnail field, we're going to get the name field, and we'll get the URL field, and that's each row in that table. So it's super straightforward. Okay, that part. That's just kind of basically showing you that indeed the result of this form puts stuff into a Meteor collection, and so that's just verifying that happened. Okay, so the real crux of this thing is this upload widget, and the way that works from the HTML point of view is basically we've got a label, and then we've got essentially two fields that are displayed: a text field, which is going to show the file name, and a button with the ID cloudinary upload widget. And when you click that button, you'll see there's an event handler that's going to pop up that upload widget. And then we've got these two hidden fields, the cloudinary URL field and the cloudinary thumbnail field. And the idea there is that we're going to use jQuery to store values for the cloudinary URL and the thumbnail URL in these hidden fields when this widget returns. That way, so when we actually click our submit button out here and we collect the data from the form is now holding the information that came back from that cloudinary upload widget. So let's see how we actually do that. Here's the click event for the cloudinary upload widget button, and for this you kind of want to go look at the cloudinary documentation to figure out what you want to do. But what I wanted to do here was get out of my Meteor settings file what the cloud name associated with my account is, and also the upload preset. This is just kind of a way of obscuring, the value of upload preset. Cloud name is public, but upload preset, if you know what you're doing, you can pretty much get at it. Okay, this isn't a secure way of preventing people from having access to upload presets. So you kind of should assume, if you want to be security conscious, that people will have access to your upload preset. We're using this unsigned preset mechanism, which means if someone actually was able to get access to your upload preset, they could now upload files to your account. Okay, they can't delete or manipulate the files that you upload, so it's not like they can kind of spoof anything, but they could potentially upload a bunch of files to a bunch of images to your account, without your permission. I've been trying to think of what the implications of that are, and it could be, like a denial of service attack. They could kind of fill up your account or something. And Cloudinary talks about a few ways you can deal with this. You can either monitor uploads, or you can move to this signed upload mechanism, which does have secure features built in, and then everything should be relatively okay. For kind of demo purposes, certainly this is a reasonable way to go. The worst case scenario is somebody will, for some reason, be using your upload preset if they actually figured out what it was to upload pictures to your account. But why would they do that when there's so many other ways to upload pictures? Anyway, so here's where there's a bunch of parameters that you can specify, and this is the cool part, which is that I can specify that you got to have cropping, and I'm providing an aspect ratio here, which means that my crop actually is constrained to always be a square. I can indicate the maximum file size that can be uploaded, and then I can specify the maximum and minimum image sizes. So you can do all sorts of crazy, and there's other parameters as well you can fiddle around with, but this provides you with the ability to really simply constrain how the image is going to be uploaded. And note in the Cloudinary count there was that idea of having an incoming transformation. So what happens is when you specify these incoming transformations the way that I told you to, once the picture is uploaded, it will actually apply these and only store the resulted cropped picture on the server, which is super nice. So anyway, what happens is we're going to call this thing, and then we're going to pass in a callback, which runs in a typical fashion with an error or result. If it's an error, then we indicate that there's an error in return. You probably want to do something a little more interesting than that. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to, in the result, you'll see it's an array, and when we're only uploading one image at a time, we'll just look at the first element, and then there's a bunch of fields in there, and you can kind of fiddle around. Like if you uncomment this, you can actually inspect what that result object looks like and figure out what you want. But in our case, we just want to know the URL to, well, we want to know what the original file name is because we're going to specify that in the form, just so people know they've succeeded and uploaded something. And then we're also going to get the thumbnail URL back and the URL of the actual picture back. And then we'll set, using jQuery, all of those values in our form. So this first one is basically just feedback to the user to know that something happened. But the real important stuff is these other two fields, the Cloudinary URL and the thumbnail, because when we submit the form, we want to store that stuff. So let's go to that now. And that means going back to our homepage.js. Remember, in our homepage here, so we know this text form control is just a text field. Cloudinary upload widget, we know that that's a button. That's going to display a button when the button's clicked. We're going to run that upload widget, and pass it a callback, which is going to upload this form with a couple hidden values. Now we're going to click submit, and let's see what happens then. And the idea here, the important stuff here is that we're going to get the name, the URL, and the thumbnail out of the event.target, okay? And we're going to do some semantic UI and meteor simple schema validation stuff. That's so that remember, if I click the form without putting any data, we get some stuff. And you look at meteor example form in order to understand this stuff, like the context, reset validation, clean, validate, is valid, the field errors, all that stuff is explained elsewhere. So I don't want to go into it here. Really the important thing for this is simply that we're going to get the name, the URL, the name, the URL, and the thumbnail out of the form submission, and then we're going to create a document containing these things, and then we're going to insert that document into the image data collection. Okay, that's what's important here. Once that's inserted into the image collection, okay, because of the fact that we have this helper function which is returning all of the documents in that collection, and because of the fact that we're displaying every document in that image data collection in this table as separate rows, we'll see that updated. Okay, so basically that's the deal. What I would recommend if you want to incorporate this in your own applications, you're going to want to be storing a URL and probably a thumbnail someplace, and then I would take these two files, the Cloudinary upload widget.html and the Cloudinary upload widget.js, copy them into your own application in whatever way you want, and then edit them to be appropriate, but preserving this idea that when the widget returns, okay, that you're going to pass a callback in, and then you got to update some hidden fields, and then so that when you actually submit your form, you've got the data that you need to update your collections. Because basically in Meteor, what you want is you want to have a bunch of collections that have fields whose values are URLs that point to the associated images in the cloud. That's what makes this cool. All right, hope you understand how to use image processing using Cloudinary in Meteor, and see you next time.